So when I read the regulation, for me, I think we are putting emphasis on the wrong things, right? Because we both understand the role of the media and the role of the government. So if we take the role of the media as the role of the accountant, and the role of the media as the role of the auditor, and the role of the government as the role of the accountant, so it essentially means that the auditor is the one who now comes to ensure that everything on the books of the accountant are right. And the problem is when the accountant determines those rules, then the auditor won't find anything, right? It's a very interesting analogy, but that's the situation between the media and the government. The government's job is to make sure that the task that it has been given by the people, it's executed and executed properly. And the job of journalists is to oversee, to ensure that what the government says it's doing in behalf of the people, it's done right. And so if you now put government in charge of our practice, then we are as good as stopping it, because we wouldn't be able. So that's our concern. I hope you understand it. So now to go into the issue of the content proper, I think that we are emphasizing on the wrong things. The reason why I said that is because government has not been trying to make journalism easy. They've been trying to moderate content. And that's a problematic issue because, for example, I will start with the issue of access to information. Okay. So if your goal is to make journalism easy, your goal is to ensure professionalism. One of the reasons why journalists go and misreport is because they don't have access to information, and timely information, and accurate information, and on time. So the first thing we have is first box, access to information. What's the government doing about it? Nothing. I happen to write series of access to information. By the way, I don't need it because I have enough friends. I did it particularly to test the system. And 80% of ATI requests I have made were not replied to. I had experiences of some people call me and said, why are you asking for this information? Meaning they don't read the law, because the law says I don't need to have a reason, right? And secondly, I've had places that refused, or I write even elementary things such as information officer, they don't know. So I write to a colleague, I asked my colleague, so we wrote 15 in total. And this we made sure we write targeting information that we know they would not give us. And we write to those institutions and say, we want these contract documents. And by the way, contract documents are supposed to be public information, right? And so one ministry came back to us and said, you didn't address this to the permanent secretary. I said, but we addressed it to the information officer. I said, no, permanent secretary, right? And so, which is wrong, because when I write on the second step for review of refusal, I now should have gone to the permanent secretary, right? So information officer first, then when the information officer refuses, I escalate it, right? But if I start with the permanent secretary, I have to now write to the review to the permanent secretary again and say. So you have a ministry that's not even able to teach the government basic things about access to information law. They don't even understand the law, by the way. I wrote to the central bank governor. Instead of giving me access to it, he went and granted an interview to a particular journalist to tell him how he should not give me the information, by the way. I know it because I'm the only one who requested for the information, right? And so he was playing to his ego. You are such a professional journalist. This person asked me, but journalists need to know what we can give and what we cannot give. Now, so just to cut it short, if you want to help us implement the access to information law, it's that simple. Second, the issue of media ownership. You are granting license to businessmen. They have no interest whatsoever in journalism. Journalism is not for-profit business. Journalism is the only tool that the poor people have in their hands to ensure the government serves them. That's why they say that we look out for the little man, right? And the history of journalism has been all throughout that period. I mean, look at us. Nobody comes out here with a flashy car. Samsar doesn't have a Bentley, or probably even a Pajero or something like that. This is not a business that rewards people money, right? Now, if you want to help us, work with us, we ensure content that is useful for the public. But if you give license to business folks, at the launching, the first thing they say, this is not a media that is going to defend human rights. If you say this is a media organization at the launch of a television or a newspaper, that is not going to defend human rights. That place should not exist. People should storm that television or that newspaper and close it down. Because the whole point of a newspaper or a television is to exist for the people. So you give license to business folks, you are killing journalism. And now you are even giving business to foreigners. I mean, people who are, excuse the language, but the point is, if you are giving businesses to not just foreign politicians, okay, like from countries that have interest in, that are foreign to our interest. I mean, they may be neighbors, but they have their own interests, you know, right? The Senegalese president is not the president of the Republic of the Gambia, right? So he has no, I hold him not responsible for anything regarding Gambian interests of Gambian people, right? So you should think about that thing. I mean, in much mature democracy, they are now thinking of media ownership, concentration of media ownership. You have one chain of companies owning large chain of media houses, and they lead to censorship. So they can just come and say, well, we wouldn't write about Israel. And there's nothing you can do about it, right? That's another issue. The other issue is you are not also encouraging and supporting. P.S. Well, I am hoping we are having a bit of a dialogue.
Yes.
Exactly. So the other issue that I think we need to discuss, you and us, because because we are saying we want to improve media. That's the whole point of the regulation, right? The other issue is new media ownership. So you have people who are starting YouTube channels, they are starting Facebook, they are monetizing them, they are starting TikTok, they are monetizing them. These people, you may want to know, are creating jobs. Like you have small boys, like people who are 18, 19, 20, they just buy an iPhone and DJI, and they are establishing a small content creation unit. They are advertising, they're making some money. These are people your government would be struggling to employ. They're employing themselves. You should be clapping for them. And they are not just employing themselves, they are relieving you of the burden of employing them, but also of the burden of other people you are supposed to employ. So let's say, for example, they create jobs for 3 people, right? So that's a good thing. You should be even buying iPhones and DJIs and giving it to people. But that's the whole point, because you want to create an informed society. And the other issue is, I've talked about media concentration. Those are things you need to be careful of. The other issue is investigative journalism. Okay? Why are you not encouraging investigative? If you want journalism to be professional, why are you not encouraging investing in training of investigative journalists? Okay, we have seen, by the way, we have a better rating than your government. The people trust us more. You've seen the surveys, right? I'm sure you saw the surveys. All the latest surveys have said that the people of this country trust the media more than they trust the government. So if you are worried about repetition, maybe you should be worried about the government, not ours. Anyway, so, but investing and fact-checking also. These are things we don't need laws, because laws by their nature cannot make people good journalists. They cannot. Laws cannot create an investigative journalist for you. So why are you wasting your time on laws? We go and create investigative journalists ourselves. We can train them. We can find ways to fund investigative journalism projects. We can train fact checkers. We can go and help people to get some funding to do fact checking. So my point is, if we are truly, and I think you are very honest man, I think you are sincere, Ismaila, well, but anyway, my point is, I think we can work together. We can sit down in one room We shelve the law and the regulation for a while, okay? Let's even suppose that you want to do it. We give ourselves 5 years. We say, let's look at the media landscape. Let's fix the issue of media ownership. Let's empower the current media houses that are existing. Let's say, for example, you call all these media houses and say, I am going to create a law which is going to establish an accountability fund. Let's say $20 million a year. It's nothing for the Gambia government. Plug a tiny hole in GRA and you've raised it.
Yeah, sure.
Right? 20 million, it's nothing. It's what you probably spend on tea, right? Now, and that would be an accountability fund. Newspapers can create investigative desks, fact-checking desks at their places, television also, and they can apply this yearly, okay? You can create a kind of a board or some kind of an organization where they can have access to these funds. We can train investigative journalists, we can train more fact checkers, we can improve content, and together we'll all be happy about ourselves. You feel good about yourself, and I feel good about myself. And finally, I'm sorry I kept it too long. But finally, I think that also the other issue is, I mean, even if you have not come up with a subvention, but create some kind of a statutory body that will have some funding, right? That both civil society and investigative journalism can. And here is the reason why you can do that, and that will be my final point. If you look at it, I mean, Mahdi had made a brief reference to some of the achievements that the media have made in the Gambia over a period. Journalists have been in this country before independence. We reported, and our reporting created an atmosphere that created the politics of this country. We created institutions of this country. The first people who are politicians, they were journalists before they became politicians. So they were shuttling between representation and investigative journalism and public interest journalism. So it has a huge, rich history of strong public interest journalism, whether it's the days of E.F. Small to the days of John Kunda, Sana, Tixmane and others, and to now, whether the days of Data Hydra and others. Okay, and Data Hydra died, and we think after the this media commissions bill thing was partly responsible for the problem that he had with the government. Now, the TRRC made a recommendations that Gambia government should establish an independent, should work with the media stakeholders to establish an independent regulation. So by this regulation itself, you are going against the TRRC recommendations. I don't know whether you read the TRRC report. The recommendations against these two things you have, these two regulations you have. So maybe you should consult the Ministry of Justice, because you will sabotage their, because when they have a donor meeting with their partners, we will go there and tell them, don't give them money, because they are not implementing the TRRC recommendations, because the TRRC recommendation says they should have an independent regulatory body, and now they are not doing it. They're going back. Yeah. So you can create problems for them. Maybe you should speak to Dauda. Yeah. So I think I'll close it here. Thank you.